Ladies and gentlemen, honored colleagues, and established guests, today I stand before you to talk about something that may not always make news headlines, but nevertheless, it shapes the hearts, the minds, and more importantly, the lives of millions around us. Poverty. And no, not the flashy kind in movies with dramatic violins and bleeding heart title cards. The kind where a childhood bedtime story is the sound of two people arguing from behind a thin motel wall. The kind where dinner might come from a convenience store, and the kind where home has a checkout time. I grew up in places with names like Royal Lounge and Sunset Inn, which is ironic considering they seldom had literally either of those things. But false advertising aside, I wouldn't recommend it for a vacation. But it was the best ethics course I could have ever wished for. And it taught me everything about perseverance, hardship, and the soul of a community. And though it didn't come with a textbook, its principles aligned perfectly with something that I didn't hear about until substantially later, the Rotary four-way test. So let's walk through this together, because once you view poverty through the lens of somebody who's experienced it personally, something shifts. That leads us on to our first question. Is it the truth? The truth? Well, the unfortunate truth is that poverty in Texas is seen as a footnote, when it should be a glaring front-page headline. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, approximately 3.5 million Texans are currently living underneath the federal poverty line. That statistic includes 1 in every 5 children. And in places like Corpus Christi and Nueces County, that number is substantially higher. This leaves entire communities playing games of generational Jenga, where one bad move, one minuscule missing piece can lead to the entire thing collapsing in on itself. Yet this prevalent truth gets wrapped up in myths and sayings like, well, they just need to work harder. Really? Tell that to a single mother juggling 2 jobs but still coming up short on rent. Tell that to a student who could recite the quadratic formula like it's gospel, but can't do their online math homework because they can't pay for Wi-Fi. These statistics, these individuals, they manifest themselves in daily life, and they're there if you look. Unfortunately, there aren't many people who are willing to look. A teacher doesn't see an individual when a student walks into her classroom wearing the same hoodie for the 3rd day in a row. In fact, that student is lucky if the teacher notices it all. And that's the perfect analogy for our system. It doesn't just ignore people. It forgets they existed to begin with. And I know what you must be thinking. It's profoundly unfair. And you'd be right. And thank you for the easy segue. That leads me on to my second question. Is it fair to all concerned? Absolutely not. Because how could it be? Some students grow up with algebra tutoring, piano lessons, and summer camp. Others grow up off a balanced diet of ramen noodles and Hot Pockets. Far too often than not, we talk about equal opportunity and fairness as if it's something that comes pre-installed with your birth certificate. But more often than not, it's more like a scavenger hunt, with no map, no clues, and a prize that's already been claimed by somebody else who isn't you. Real fairness, real equal opportunity, doesn't just come from ensuring that everybody can access the same toolbox. That's the bare minimum. Real fairness comes from ensuring that people can reach that toolbox in the first place. That leads us on to our third question. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Absolutely. Because the best thing that you can give to the most downtrodden and disadvantaged isn't a handout. It's humanity. It's the guidance counselor who slips you a hoodie that didn't look like it had fallen out of a time capsule. It's the teacher who slips you extra snacks during lunch. Though those gestures are done in complete silence, they will echo the loudest through the hardest periods of somebody's life. And this is where the Rotary excels. It's been doing this for decades. It's not loud and it's not flashy, but it delivers quality service quietly and consistently. You won't see TikToks about it, but you'll see families fed, students supported, and communities that actually work for each other. In a world full of look-at-me moments, Rotarians say, let's look out for each other. And that matters. It's the kind of goodwill that builds better friendships. That leads us on to our fourth and final question. Lastly, is it fair to all concerned? Absolutely. Because once you prioritize friendships, you uplift individuals. Once you uplift individuals, you uplift neighborhoods. Once you uplift neighborhoods, you uplift cities. And once you uplift cities, you uplift Texas as a whole. Isn't that what we're here for? To uplift each other? As Rotarians, as individuals, as people? So let's do that. Let's take each other by the hand and walk each other through these problems. Let's help each other directly, as opposed to just pointing in the general direction of help and saying good luck. Allow me to level with you for a second, if I may. I didn't grow up with much, but I grew up with people who reminded me that I had mattered. And now I have this, a microphone, a stage, a voice, and people who are willing to listen. And I'm here to tell you that poverty isn't some abstract horror story out of a novel. It's just a story that we haven't finished rewriting yet. And I'm also here to tell you that the Rotary four-way test isn't some old cheesy motto on an old blue banner. It's a checklist for action, for duty, for ambition, for charity to our fellow man. Because success shouldn't stop at the individual. Once somebody crosses that door, once somebody gets through that threshold, it shouldn't be about closing it behind them. It should be about holding it open. For the next kid, running down the hallway of a budget motel, wielding nothing but a dream and an off-brand bag of chips from a vending machine. Thank you.